Yo everybody, what's going on? This is Keegan from Kman Reviews. If you enjoyed this review, make sure you hit that like and the subscribe button, and if you have any opinions at all that you would like to share, make sure to leave them down in the comment section. Jane Remover, Frailty. Jane Remover is the newly established alias of hyperpop digicore artist Delete Zeke. Some of you may remember I reviewed their debut album Teen Week a while ago. The link to that review will be in the corner if you're curious to check that one out. However, thanks to another viewer suggestion, I have been asked to check out their follow-up record Frailty, released a mere 9 months after Teen Week. I have been anticipating this album for so long now, so let's not waste any more time. Let's just dive in. What are my thoughts on Frailty? Let's find out as I review it track by track. We will start with the singles, with there being 3 of them, the first being How to Lie, beginning with some soft, virtuous acoustic guitar work, a very tranquil way to kick off the track, especially when paired with Jane's more melancholic vocal tone and light strings resting in the background. It almost feels like it's gonna be some tender acoustic song, which would have been an odd choice for a lead single for a hyperpop record, and while the track does continue in a beautifully built up fashion, the absolute raucous yet par for the course energy does make itself known within due time. Glitchy rhythms, neon synths, less bass than I expected, but the frenzy on display still paints a lovely, if a bit frantic picture. However, the outro is where the real chaos comes in, being this smothering, almost rock-fueled instrumental, rupturous drums, aggressive riffs. I love the dynamic journey this song goes on, and it's an excellent single choice. The second single, Pretender, is a surprisingly normal song following a very similar path to that of the lead-off single, being a bit slower but slowly building up to the eventual climax. But on this one, there is hardly any acoustics in sight, just the faint wisps of percussion, the occasional twinkle of synth, and a crystalline varnish covering the mix for the early parts of the song. Over time we get some slippery bass and then the introduction of softer acoustics, eventually leading to the peak of the song about 2 minutes in, which feels like an excellent rock, kind of grunge instrumental with the assistance of a bright synth melody. It's all got a bit of a rougher texture to it. Maybe not as outwardly explosive as I would have liked, but the change in style is very appealing to hear as that particular sound guides the track to its completion. Very fun song here. And the third and final single, Search Party, is probably my favorite of the singles. It starts off respectable enough, echoey vocals and a sense of melancholia in the reclusive acoustics. Then we get this sort of minimal beat with beeping synths, brittle percussion, and static ambience, which is already catchy, but little did I know that the real catchiness was yet to come as this instrumental begins this slow, yet mesmerizing build, getting gradually more and more dense with prominent synths, raucous drum work, and this pitched effect on Jane's vocals, which really makes the payoff worth it when it comes to a head. Such a journey of a song and an excellent singles run. Let's see how the rest of the album compares. Now for the rest of the tracks. Opener Goldfish starts the record off on a hazy note. Downtrodden, murky, and scratchy acoustics line the base of the song in a despondent foundation as Jane's monotone vocals hopelessly dance around it. Though unlike the singles, this track doesn't come to some vibrant, colorful peak, preferring to stay at this bleaker tone for the entirety of its 3 minutes. Glad it was chosen as the intro, as I don't think it would have really fit anywhere else. Your Clothes is a welcome change-up from the well-cemented formula of the singles, where pretty much all of those tracks started slow and built to something more chaotic. This track doesn't waste a minute in getting to that chaos, quickly revealing its colors as what I can only describe as hyper-pop punk. Though that sound is not all that evident right at the beginning with its glittery, twinkly synths, sugary keys, and an overall blissful rhythm, but it isn't until the smashing percussion comes in to properly set your expectations right, and when it homogenizes in with that synth melody, it really reminds me of some of the more glamorous pop punk that came from the late 2000s. I also like the lyrics here, with my interpretation being Jane has these feelings for someone, but they don't reciprocate to them, so they want to be in their clothes, so to speak, to see why that's the case. Yeah, really enjoyed this one. Misplaced kind of returns to that same formula, opening up with gray, somber acoustics, though the mood doesn't stay that sour for long as this trotting percussion comes sauntering in. The pre-chorus is pretty chill, with Jane's falsetto and brighter ringing synth leading way for this excellent climax on the chorus with this raucous energy, faster tempo, your typical glitchy synth spectacle. The track only eventually manages to get bigger with more piercing synth work, and the several breakdowns it undergoes really manages to keep me invested. A banger in every sense of the word. Love this one. Buzzcut Daisy, the shortest track on the record, just 2.5 minutes, and as no surprise, the track comes off like kind of an interlude. It doesn't really go anywhere with these echoey acoustics and dense bubbles of synth, perfectly content to trudge along in its own dejected yet surprisingly soft tone. There's not really any bass, eruptions, hell no fire to begin with. I'm glad it's one of the shorter ones. As much as I love the sound, I don't think it could have handled a full 3-4 minutes of this, so it works well here. Movies for Guys kicks off with this garbly, scratchy synth melody that gradually gets more and more polished until it blossoms into this pounding pop rhythm. Quite the satisfying build-up all around. though this track is far from your run-of-the-mill pop banger, embarking on quite the sonic journey of rises and dips, varying tonal stances, and borderline genre switch-ups at times, to aggressive head-banging moments, to a haunting ambience, to gentle string-fueled softness. There is no more eclectic track on this record than this one. It really comes off as the centerpiece of the record, and has to be one of the most captivating songs I've ever heard in this genre. Absolutely adore it. Kodak Moment follows a very similar formula that Movies for Guys did. They're both longer tracks, starting out with a simple catchy melody, but over the course of the track gradually evolve into a more cacophonous frenzy that is equally gratifying, though this track seems to be a bit more focused on the original track with the hissing snap of the drum, glossy twinkling synth, and some denser ambience, with Jane's harmonious delivery really helping to carry the track for the first 2 minutes before it all gets completely transformed and goes pretty much uninterrupted for 2 minutes of garbly distorted synths, rupturing bass, and absolutely frantic melodies, only for the song to return to equilibrium for the final minute or so, ending the song on cutesy synths and keys that remind me of some end credits theme. This is another killer track. Can You Tell doesn't hold back in introducing the chaos, unlike most of the previous tracks. Instead, this one starts off with this grindy, glitchy synth melody before bringing in the discordant, jumbled up wall of sound that hardly has any melody to it. After nearly a minute of all that, we get a bubbly, saccharine synth motif and some serene vocals to usher in the track properly. The track continues while both sides of that coin, mingle, and dance along the track's duration, each taking the lead a few times before they fully merge into this thumping climax 2.5 minutes in that is an absolute rager. Great way to build a track and keep it engaging. Another stellar song. Champ, the longest track here, being a bit over 6 minutes long, and I gotta be honest, this one is the weakest link of the record for me. It's got some moments that I like though. The bass instrumental of the track is very soothing, especially the piano work, which I believe is a direct interpretation of Professor Rowan's lab from Gen 4 Pokemon, my favorite Pokemon generation. I also do like the peak of the track, violently fluttering and glitchy synths, but still with that soft piano really personifying the beauty that lays behind the madness. I also do like Jane's vocals, and the lyrics are far and away my favorite part of the song. Seems to just be about reflecting on the past and ashamed of the person you've become in the present, knowing you can't go back and change your path to make a more appealing life for yourself. It hits pretty hard. However, I'm sorry, but this track is kind of a slog to get through, and the big reason why is there's just no build at all. The rest of the tracks each felt like they were leading to something and knew how to properly build. This one is just flat valley for the first 4 minutes, and it kind of gets a bit boring waiting for that mountain. As it stands, it's still fine, but not an immediate hit for me. Eyes Off the Wheel, I'm a Star is quite the frantic track, starting with murky, bubbly synth work followed by cavernous ambience and a ringing melody, though none of that lasts very long as this thrumming bass work comes in for the refrain, but it's really the following instrumental breakdown that invokes such an uncertainty, really having a hard time settling down into one defined sound or motif, like a kid hyped up on sugar. And that energy is fully harnessed on this second chorus, probably being one of the most brash performances on the record. Like I mentioned, certainly frantic, but it's an interesting sonic journey nonetheless, and I enjoyed it. And the closer, Let's Go Home, doesn't instantly give off closer vibes. It starts with this very playful melody, almost like something I'd expect to hear in an SNES-era Nintendo game. Eventually that beat becomes even more striking as it gains an upbeat percussive track, and then feels like an end credits theme, which at least for me, I adore these types of bubbly, sweet pop instrumentals. It's just got such a charming, dance floor ready vibe to it. Yet despite that, it's another case of pretty depressing lyrics, talking about believing all your friends are actually just fake and not really deserving of real, proper friends. That message really comes through when the instrumental reaches its climax, which is a million times more dense, rough, and aggressive than its sunshiny predecessor. I absolutely love this. Phenomenal closer choice. Overall, Frailty is definitely an improvement over Teen Week. The track listing is concise and consistent and works surprisingly well as a full body experience. That's one thing I was especially worried about diving into this, being the album's seemingly crushing length of nearly an hour. Pretty long for a record of this genre, but it flows pretty well, and not to mention these being some of Jane's best songs, period. It all works together to make a stunningly harmonious record. I had a blast with this, highly recommended. I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 on this album. Well guys, hope you enjoyed that review. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.